赤い合図 Redman 燃える合図 Redman 遥か銀河の赤い星から光に乗ってやってきた風を積んだけレッドアロー敵にとどめのレッドナイフ Let's get Let's jump Let's fall Wow 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 Redman 赤い合図 Redman 光る合図 Redman 熱い血潮が真っ赤に燃えて恐れるものは何もない風を積んだけレッドアロー敵にとどめのレッドナイフ Let's kick Let's jump Let's fall Wow 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 Redman 赤い合図 Redman 強い合図 Redman 赤いあの色勇気の印命をかけた大抵と風を積んだけレッドアロー敵にとどめのレッドナイフ Let's kick Let's jump Let's fall Whoa, whoa, whoa Redman
A mini welcome to my first mini episode. What makes this a mini episode? Well, it's all very simple. It's a lot shorter than my normal episodes, which my Kamen Rider Amazon's episode is over 4 hours, which I didn't really realize until I had it done. Sorry about that, because apparently people don't like that. So, yeah, that's why we're doing these. These are supposed to be designed for people who don't really have 3 to 4 hours or 2 hours to listen to a podcast. I'm hoping, I'm recording this now, but I'm hoping by the time I'm done editing and all that kind of stuff, it'll be a half hour at the most. I'm aiming for even under that. I'm really focusing on the mini aspect. So to ensure that doesn't happen, I'm picking topics that don't really have a lot to talk about, but I kind of still want to draw recognition to. These will probably be mini-series or short films, those short films that they show at mini film festivals that are like 5-10 minutes long. Really interesting stuff. I like that kind of stuff. They have a film festival here in Prince George where they show a whole bunch of mini films, mostly horror films. It's pretty nice. So, without further ado, let's kick this first mini episode off with Redman. I know Redman sounds a lot like a made-up-on-the-spot superhero name because no one could come up with something better, which really, names like Superman and Spider-Man are just as silly, but we can get those leeway because they were coming out in the 30s to the 60s. I think Superman came out in the 30s. I'm not a Superman guy, but I know Spider-Man came out in the 60s. Redman was in the 70s, in 72 to be exact, and there's a reason that his name sounds like it's just come up with off the top of someone's head. The name comes from the name that was being used as a temporary title for the Ultraman show when it was still in its early production stages before the name Ultraman could be approved of. They had to find out if it wasn't trademarked or copyrighted or anything of that. Strange considering the original Ultraman has a gray face instead of red. But like I said, that wasn't ever going to be the real name. It was just, we need a fake name. I don't know, it's got some red. Redman. Yeah, we'll go with that. So that's where they got this. I don't know. Well, this show is made by the same company, by the way, Subaraya Productions. I'm not sure if this is some kind of weird homage or reference to Ultraman, maybe because Subaraya wasn't alive at this point, or if they just wanted to stick with the theme of the show of being extremely bare bones and basic, and it's really bare bones and basic. The show is 5 minutes long and was part of the Ohio Kodama Variety Show, which was basically just kind of a whole bunch of these different 5-minute short different shows. I don't really know too much about other shows on the lineup. I think Mirror Man from Subaraya, or no, not Mirror Man, Triple Fighter, which is they're currently streaming on their YouTube now. That's about 7 minutes, so that might have been on this lineup. Who knows? I plan to talk about that when it's finished streaming. So, speaking of Subaraya Productions and Ultraman, unlike the more famous full-length Ultraman shows, this show featured a human-sized hero battling monsters the size of a large man. Think maybe Ivan Drago with scales. Most of these being old monsters from the Ultra series with various costumes and levels of condition that were not exactly pretty. They were usually tattered and torn after their Ultraman debut episodes, where those costumes usually got beat the hell up and sometimes cut into pieces by our peace-loving hero. And Subaraya just loves their psycho heroes, which never appear to be psycho, but they can get pretty violent. But actually, the first foe that he fights is a monster from Mirror Man, in case you really know what Mirror Man is. I'm willing to bet most people listening to this don't, oddly enough. So, the other monsters are invaders that destroyed Redman's home, who he now hunts on Earth. And see, here's the first thing. They don't actually explain the story or the back origins or really what's going on in this show. Any backstory was explained in magazine scans way back when this show was first coming out in Japan, and luckily has been translated by some of the more hardcore Subaraya fans and Ultraman fans. But the show wouldn't tell you that. And here's the weird thing. Speaking of explaining things for just a second. Well, it's sort of related. But Subaraya had this show subbed when they were playing it on their YouTube channel, which is weird because this show doesn't actually have any dialogue besides Redman shouting his attacks, which, even if you don't know Japanese, you can still tell what he's saying. Stuff like Redo Kick isn't really hard to figure out that it's Red Kick. And yes, that is an actual attack. But oddly enough, now that they're airing Triple Fighter, which does have a story, albeit an extremely basic story, but a dialogue and the story nonetheless, it's not subtitled. I don't get that. I don't really understand that. Anyway, so the backstory revealed from these magazines is that these aliens destroyed his home and now they're on Earth and now he's hunting them. And when I say hunt, I mean hunt. This isn't some peaceful hero bullshit. Redman is a fucking vicious killer who stalks evil and peaceful monsters alike in unyielding prejudice and indifference. If you watch the show, the episodes follow the very core basic of these types of shows. These hero versus monster shows, kind of like Kamen Rider. The hero fights the monster, and that's it. You get nothing else. No story, no human actors except the suit actors, not even a city. It's no setting. It all takes place in some barren field, some jungle, I don't know. They just found some random piece of dirt, some grass field, gravel pits, all that kind of stuff. Stuff you don't need any type of permits to shoot or nothing like that, I don't think anyway. This show had a really, really low budget, and I don't think they needed a huge budget because I don't think it was supposed to be anything more than what it is. The show starts out usually with a monster minding its own damn business. They'll just be sitting there. One monster I know was like with its son, I remember, or something like that. Some of them are just sitting there eating their food. Some are just walking around, enjoying the nice day. When all of a sudden, this asshole shows up like an edgy version of Steve Irwin and just attacks it for no reason. And then they fight. But when I say fight, they're more like awkward wrestling matches, which the Redman's antenna actually breaks off quite a lot during these. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or not. Think of watching three-year-olds that just watched a Bruce Lee movie combined with Captain Kirk's battle, quote-unquote, with the Gorn from Star Trek. It's that level of awkward, and for a while the show doesn't really have any background music except either for some low keyboard and drums that sound like it's just one guy messing around with instruments for sound check. Eventually, about halfway through this 138 episodes, they started playing the Redman theme towards the ends of the battle, where Redman would finish off these innocent creatures with some brutal finishing techniques and other attacks that are no different than normal attacks other than being red. So, let's take a look at Redman's attacks. So, I'm reading this from the Ultra Wiki here. Techniques. The red knife. And yes, all of these start with red, his attacks anyway. And they're not actually red. They just are done by Redman. Okay, red knife. Redman can create an oversized knife, which he can fling at the enemy or use it to slash enemies. The results vary from explosion to impalement. It seems to vary in strength. Sometimes it can be blocked by the monster barehanded, but a single explosion from it can kill 5 monsters at once. The red arrow. Red arrow! Redman has a spear similar to Ultraman Jack's Ultra Cross, which is usually stored in a small size, but can be enlarged at will and used to stab enemies. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he just straight up stole it from Ultraman Jack. He's that kind of hero. Then, from the red arrow, he's got the red shot. Red shot! A beam fired from the tip of the red knife. And then we have the red kick and red punch, which, take a guess at what that is. A punch and a kick, but this time it's got red, and he shouted it. And now I hadn't seen Redman until Subaraya started putting it up, but I had heard its theme song before. And I always thought I was mishearing the lyric Red Fall, because they say it in the song. But I found out that actually is an attack, and I always pictured Red Fall as that he just fell on someone. But it's actually more like he just throws them. He throws his enemies. He doesn't fall on them. I think it would be cooler if Red Fall was when he jumped up and did some kind of elbow drop or something like that. That would have been cooler. And, of course, we have Red Chop, another mysterious attack that we can only begin to think of how they came up with a name for it. Red Jump. Not really an attack. Even the description says he simply jumps into the air. But this is just tokusatsu hero common tropes. They all have special jumps, special punches and kicks named after themselves. You know, if you watch this kind of stuff, it's nothing new. It's nothing different. But someone who is new to this stuff, they are always like so amazed. Like, why would you name a jump after yourself? Why would you shout out that you're punching or kicking someone? Why not just do it? But this is just part of the charm, guys. It's why we love this stuff. And then he has flight, teleportation, and he can clone himself. And these aren't like Naruto shadow clones. These are actual clones that can fuck monsters up individually, which he usually uses in the ever so thrilling and rare multi-monster matches in which he'll face sometimes 3 to 5 monsters at once, which you'd think he wouldn't be able to, since some of these monsters he has fought before, and it's a little tough for him, until he could bust out his epic finisher, whatever he might have chosen at the time. But in these, he'll just be getting his ass kicked the whole time, and then with 2 seconds left to spare, he'll pull off some attack, and one will die, and that sets off the explosion like dynamite dominoes, and they all die, and that's it. And then each episode ends with Redman looking up into the sky triumphantly at the innocent lives he's just murdered for the sake of justice. Because, really, Redman is a dark hero. He just doesn't know it yet. It's like Little Slugger from Paranoia Agent. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's a crusader for justice. But I feel like that if the Ultra Guard ever looked down on Earth and saw this guy running amok, slaying innocent monsters' lives, they'd come down. They'd give him a beatdown. Human or giant size, they'd do it. So, that was the mini episode. I hope it was mini enough for you. I'm pretty sure it will be now that I'm done this recording. I won't have any type of special Thanksgiving episode up this year or anything like that. I will have something for Christmas, but until then, you'll just have to settle for what I got. I'm on Podomatic under UPG Podcast, and I'm also now on YouTube for UPG Podcast. That's all you have to do is type in UPG Podcast. You'll see a bunch of my older episodes that I have uploaded, and of course this recent one will also be on YouTube, and from now on I will also be on YouTube because so far it doesn't seem like I'm having any issues with the music I play on the show or anything like that. So hopefully that works out and I can continue expanding my audience. Eventually I hope to go on iTunes. I have to actually get off my ass and look into that. It can't be that hard, and I'm already paying like $10 for Podomatic extra space. So, yeah, what's a few extra money if I have to pay to have it on iTunes? I don't know how any of this stuff works. I'm literally just winging all this as I go, but that's the kind of guy I am. Anyway, I'm rambling now, so I'm just gonna end it there. See you guys later.
赤いあいつ Redman 燃えるあいつ Redman 遥か銀河の赤い星から光に乗ってやってきた風をつんざけレッアロー敵にとどめのレッナイフ Let's get Let's jump Let's fall Oh Redman赤いあいつ Redman 燃えるあいつ Redman 遥か銀河の赤い星から光に乗ってやってきた風をつんざけレッアロー敵にとどめのレッナイフLet's kick, let's jump, let's fall. Oh, Redman, Redman. 赤いあいつ Redman 燃えるあいつ Redman 遥か銀河の赤い星から光に乗ってやってきた風をつんざけレッアロー敵にとどめのレッナイフ